Disney. It is one of the most iconic brands on the face of the earth and one of the most valuable companies as well. It used to be a very good stock until it fell about 50% over the last 2 years. But is this time to start looking at the stock again? Let's go ahead and break it down. Now, I don't think that I need to tell you what Disney does or how they have done in terms of their content. However, there has been some things that have really pushed the company, I would argue, off of a cliff since 2021, but there is something that occurred just a few weeks ago that could signal that this is the time to start buying Disney. But first, what exactly happened and how did we get here? Well, here's the thing. Before the pandemic, let's say between 2019 and 2010, the stock was relatively flat. Like, it really was not doing anything. Then we hit the pandemic, and that's when they launched Disney Plus. The stock took off. One of the best stocks that year up until the summer or so of 2021. That's when everything really started to fall apart. And during this time, right, you had Bob Iger, who had run the company for years. He was the one who helped Disney to buy Marvel and to buy Star Wars and really expand ESPN to the point that it is today. He stepped down in 2020, right before the world fell apart, and named his own CEO of Bob Chapek. Yes, they had the same first name, okay? So you had this new guy come in, and he is the one who, I would argue, overproduced in some ways. He had Marvel do not just 1 or 2 movies a year, you gotta do 5 movies a year. I'm exaggerating on the number of movies. But he did put out like 5 Disney Plus streaming shows. He's the one who really tried to push everything and really get that content out there. He also is the one who didn't manage the whole Florida governor situation where they were going through an entire fight. And then Bob Iger comes back. They kick him out within about, I think, 24 months or so as CEO. It was probably actually a little less than that. And they put the new CEO in. So you got CEO troubles. You've got content troubles as well. So just this year in 2023, Disney has put out a bunch of movies that have had mixed reviews. So Guardians of the Galaxy 3, excellent movie. It's in my top 10 or so of Marvel movies. Okay, you can see all the comics in the back. I'm here for the long haul, okay? But you had Guardians of the Galaxy 3, that was good. The Elementals movie, it failed at the box office, but actually did get critical reviews and got more steam once it got on Disney Plus. The Haunted Mansion movie, which came out during the summer and not Halloween, did terribly. The Marvels did not do well, although I thought the film was okay. They have been bombing left and right for the most part when it comes to theaters, and this has also made headlines. However, all this bad news could actually be good news in 2024. And before I go forward, let's also not forget how Marvel hinged this entire franchise in the next several years on Jonathan Majors, who is now convicted on 2 criminal counts of domestic violence, if I'm not mistaken. That ain't good for Disney, and they actually fired him at the time that we're doing this video. So with all that bad stuff, what in the world could be good going on with Disney? Well, if you are a technical analysis, someone who likes to look at charts and uses charting to tell you when and where to invest, Disney just passed what we call the Golden Cross. This has been a research study that was done by UCLA and several other universities that says once the stock has some what we call momentum and the 21-day moving average crosses above the 200-day moving average, then it is a good sign that this could be a good buy. Well, this just happened with Disney on December 4th of 2023, and that is a good signal that the company could be moving forward. But a chart does not a great investment make, at least for me, right? I need a little bit more than just a chart. The other good thing is Disney is starting to make the right moves. Now, just because it is the right moves doesn't mean it's always the morally right thing to do. What I mean by that is this. Disney is doing right now in 2023 what many tech companies did in 2022. So for example, take Meta, or I'll ask you this question. What did Meta, Microsoft, and Alphabet, aka Google, do right around this time last year? They laid off employees. And they also just reduced expenses, which we could argue is synonymous. Now, I'm not arguing that you should do that. Okay, I don't think I'm not going to be the one arguing that people should get fired. However, Disney did, which does own ESPN, did cut down on some of their on-air talent. Also, what Disney is doing to reduce costs is they're pulling back their content focus. So instead of putting out 5 Marvel movies that cost you $50 million a piece, right, and doing 5 Disney Plus shows for a specific franchise, they're cutting down. I think Deadpool 3 is the only movie that's coming out, only Marvel movie that's coming out next year. They are focusing on quality and not quantity. That is going to do 2 things. One, it's probably going to rebuild some fan expectation. Yeah, I'm looking for reputation, whatever the word is I'm looking for. That's going to be helped, I think. But most importantly, you're going to bring down those expenses. And when you do that from an investor perspective, from a Wall Street perspective, you bring down costs and you keep your revenue at or near the same level, you are going to appear more profitable. Yes, you're going to be more profitable, but when we start to look at earnings and we start to look at these financial statements, they're going to look a lot better because you're not producing 5 times the content. Right, that is going to be the thing that can help Disney move forward. And Bob Iger has already signaled that hey, we're going to slow down, we're going to focus on quality, which means you're likely going to spend a bit less. That is the fundamental way to look at this. Fundamentals meaning looking at the numbers, looking at how these companies are performing on a cash in, cash out basis. I think that is the reason why Disney could be moving in the right direction. The last reason is more of an observation. Okay, brands like Disney, companies like Disney that are this big for this long, they don't slide for that long, right? Like we're going on 2 years now, from 2021 to 2023. It's 2 straight years of a downward slide. At some point, the stock does have to come back. Just law of large numbers, they're not going to go bankrupt. They do have to come back at some point because it's Disney, because they're not going anywhere, right? It's not like people have decided to abandon Disney World as a whole, right? Until that happens, they're going to come back at some point. This could be that point. I would argue that many of the stocks I don't like no more, right? Like Target. At some point, Target will come back. I don't know if it's going to be in 24 or 25, but Target's not going bankrupt either. Another company that I have kind of gone back and forth with, and we talked a lot about, or I used to beat up on a lot, Netflix is a very good example of this. Netflix was terrible at one point, and they started to come back, and they came back in a big way. All the companies I mentioned earlier with Meta, Alphabet, even Nvidia, Microsoft, all those companies that cut staff last year and reduced their costs last year did what in 2023? They popped big time. Now, yes, they have all been in tech. Okay, that is true. That's the other thing they all have in common. But I think a similar theme could play true for Disney, which has a foot in tech if you want to talk about Disney Plus. So there's a case. There is a case for them to do extremely well. And if you were going to invest, I think right now could be the opportunity. Now, the question you're probably asking now is, you're saying all this stuff, are you going to put your own money on the line? That answer is yes. Yes, I'm going to put a small sum of my own money back into Disney. I think this is a good price, around $93. And I do believe that they are going to cut costs. I think they're going to look a lot more profitable in 2024. Now, what happens in 25? I don't know. Okay, but what I'm willing to do, as I tell you guys all the time, is I give them a 6-month contract. Okay, I will invest in Disney at the end of December of 2024, which is 2023, which is what I always do. I always make my changes to my investments around this time. You do what you want to do. Just tell me what I'm doing. And then in June of 2024, we'll come back and see whether I was right or wrong. Hopefully I'm right, because I'm putting my own money in it. And I'm considering, I have to actually go and see whether my kids own Disney or not. They're kids. They're 5 and 3. They love Disney. I think it's okay for them to have a little tiny bit. But just like I say, because I want to be transparent with everybody, I do not recommend putting more than 5% of your total portfolio into any one stock. I'm not getting nowhere close to 5%. You might get a 0.5% from me for Disney just because of how shaky it has been. But I do believe it enough to put a little bit of my own money into it. So that is what I am intending to do. That's what I'm planning to do. And Insider members only, you can learn more about how this entire process is going to work. Now, if you want to learn more about Disney because you do want to do more of your research, I talked about ESPN, I talked about the CEO and how the inner workings of the company have played out. So you want to make sure that you watch these videos next.